Right, so with our next talk, we have the evolution of customer support from reactive to proactive. And we have a panel now with Andy from Salesloft, Jennifer Yorke from Ometria, and Jaeger Dyble, who is our very own. So if you would like to help me welcome them out, and then they can actually say some things that are far smarter than I ever could. That's your cue, after you. Okay. There's the middle one. That's Andy's.
That's Andy.
And that's yours. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rich. Hi guys, this is very exciting to all the three of us be here today. So as Rich said, we are going to be talking and actually looking at more of the proactive versus reactive support, but almost kind of how the kind of evolution around that is kind of working as well. So I head up the client services team at Six and Flow, and as Rich said, we've got Andy. So if you'd like to kind of introduce, give a little bit of background to yourselves.
Yes, certainly. So hello everyone, thanks for coming along. My name is Andy Turner. I currently head up EMEA partnerships at Salesloft. Prior to that, I was a senior customer success team lead at Drift. 25th year in client-facing roles. I've been through sales, marketing, and everything along the way. So looking forward to the discussion today.
I'm Jen Yorke. I'm Chief Customer Officer at Ometria, which is a Series C backed retail technology company. You would not know us, but if you have shopped with the likes of Hotel Chocolat or Echo or Steve Madden or anyone of that nature, we power the customer experience in the back end. My claim to fame, I was HubSpot's first customer success manager. Did a stint in Boston for a number of years, and then have been in Europe for 12, and thoroughly enjoy it and have no plans on going back.
Amazing. So two very knowledgeable people sat here. So I think the first question, if we kind of look at it, is kind of a free-flowing session. But I really think if we focus the first one a little bit around kind of what's the difference between kind of customer success and like customer support, and actually how both of you guys kind of manage that specifically in your own companies.
Yeah, so a big one for me, customer support is reactive. So you're waiting for the customer to bring a challenge to you and then you need to solve it. Whereas customer success, in a perfect world, is meant to be proactive and sharing something of value with the customer that they haven't necessarily asked for, but are really grateful that they found out once you give it to them.
Yeah, 100%. And I think we can tie a lot of this back to what Kay was saying in her talk earlier on. With customer success motion, you're doing that planning, you're doing that strategy. That's where things like the ongoing success plans really come into play. So not only are you looking at what's happening now, but you're aligning on clear goals and objectives that you are going to achieve during that customer's life cycle. And then things like those success plans will keep both parties true to that mission, and also help alleviate some of the issues that will come through when we were talking earlier about execs leaving the business or changes internally. That success plan becomes a source of truth for ongoing success and development.
Yeah. And I think that's like massively key as well. And we've had kind of a brief conversation about this as well, where actually you look at some account plans and the strategic side of it, and it can be so overcomplicated. And I could probably put my hands up and say exactly the same. I was speaking to our team managers yesterday and saying, the account plans we put together, actually, we're making it so overcomplicated where they're not working, when actually the key information that you need is who they are, how they influence the business. You know, even if their block is just understanding who or what they're doing, and actually their main key objectives. So I think internally in your businesses as well, like, is there something that you use along the lines of like QBRs, or like how do you then like manage that success, but also the support of showing the businesses and like the key decision makers like how you're doing?
Yeah.
I did the last one.
Okay. So yeah, I think it's an interesting point. And again, we were talking earlier on when it comes to things like QBRs and measures. I think the key really is to ensure that you clearly align on those goals and objectives from day one, from day dot. I have certainly, and I'm sure we've all experienced times when we're working with customers and we get to the onboarding phase and we come in as CS and we're like, right, let's align on goals. And the company's like, well, I don't really know what they are. I'm not entirely sure. and you kind of think you've just bought a product or service and you don't fully understand. So aligning quickly and concisely on those is important. And then on the point of QBRs or EBRs, um, my experience, especially over the last sort of 3 to 5 years, is that the exec piece is kind of changing and morphing as well. I've seen a lot more executive buyers who are actually empowering their teams to make the decisions. So they don't necessarily need to be pulled in on some of those calls. You empower the teams, but it's then finding a way and a methodology of how you're going to keep that exec connected. They might not have time to come and sit on a 1 hour call every quarter, but if you're keeping them connected through regular cadences and other methods, then it keeps that flowing, and also being able to do things like exec to exec alignment, right? So you're keeping that overarching connection to the exec while following through on the other aspects of success.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. A couple of things. So there's the quote that's attributed to Ford of, if I asked customers what they would want, we would have, what was it, like a buggy with more horses on it, or versus actually having a car. Yes, it's nice to ask your customers what their goals are, but at the end of the day, it's business software, so they've bought it to make more money.
Yeah.
So you can ask them for their opinion, but what you need to understand is, how does utilizing this connect with making more money, and make sure that you are actively tracking that and sharing that with the decision makers. And to your point, there are definitely leaders that want to empower their team. That's really nice. They don't get a say in that. They still have to be involved. And the likelihood is it's going to come back to, hey, leader, here's how we're making you money. And getting them to feel interested enough to show up for part of those cadences.
Yeah.
We do, at various levels, because we do have segmentation within our customer base, have differing levels of connection. But for the business reviews, we have them set so that there's only the understanding that an executive would join for the first 5 to 10 minutes, because traditionally we can get that from them.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the business review is actually built on the predication that they're going to leave. And so that's something that you can also think about, is not necessarily having to have them there the whole time. Because as leaders, I'm sure a lot of you are leaders as well, you don't have the time to be there for that length, but you might drop in.
I think, especially like we can see it across some teams as well, and some businesses where, okay, that sounds like a great thing where they do come in, but I think rather than always just looking at the successes, how can you manage that if you're not being able to get that key decision maker in, and they just don't understand, or they can't see that there's poor communication internally, so they don't actually know what they're getting out of it.
Yeah.
So how would you actually manage that side of it to kind of turn that around into more of a success and getting that decision maker back in?
It's a great question. I think one of the areas that we've seen success in that kind of area is to look at different mediums as well. You know, you might not be able to get somebody into a call. Email is a great metric, of course, as long as you're being concise with your messaging, but also using other mediums like video. I mean, at Drift, there is a part of our product which is a video product, so we would be able to enable that to do snapshot videos. Video you have to be careful with. Again, if I'm recording a 15-minute video to try and summarize an EBR, that's not going to get watched. So putting it down into bite-sized little chunks. Just notice this hand is going the whole time. Apologies for that. Into bite-sized chunks, so you're getting key messaging across, and also being able to pull some of the data off that for open rates, watch rates, pass-on rates, etc. So as long as you're able to quantify the facts that your message is getting across, then it does kind of, you know, bridge that gap a little bit.
There's also the opportunity to utilize different teams and methodologies. So for the organization that I'm currently at, we do know that net new sales are heavily influenced by references. And so we've actually partnered with the sales organization, the marketing organization, to create a community specifically for our decision makers. And there's a value for those decision makers. They've actually said, you know, we want to connect with other people like myself to understand what's happening, just like you're doing today. And so we facilitate that. And actually, they don't have to show up to the actual customer success management led initiatives. That's the day-to-day stuff. But when they want to come to a VIP dinner, guess what they do? They go and they ask their team, like, share the last EBR with me. And traditionally, we can then interact with them in that way. Now, this does work for a specific segment of our customer base, which is our more like higher level segment. Whereas for the other ones, to your point, we may target email or video, sometimes even doing things such as letter writing, as oddly as it sounds, because people don't get them, so they will open them. But again, you have to pick methods that work based on how large your segments are. If you have a segment of 2,000, which I've had in the past, then email, social, those calls could be the right way of doing it, or webinars as well.
Okay, amazing. And I think looking at it from actual the success side of it, how can you focus on customer success in a product-led environment? Like, how does that work for you?
I'm going to reference back to Drift again. Drift is a product, for those of you that don't know. Drift was devised to be a chatbot on your website that would qualify your sales leads and pass them through to sales, with the end goal being that your visitors to your website left either with the information that they needed, the ability to talk to someone in real time, or to book a meeting. With that, accelerating the sales process. Now, when the lean to product-led growth started to sort of, impact some of our larger clients, of course, those two key metrics are less of a focus. We're not wanting people necessarily to speak live or book a meeting. We're wanting to direct them to an area on the website where they can make a purchase. So then it's a case of really digging into the data. Data is king. If we're able to dig into the data, we're still aiming to reduce friction with the flows that we're moving, with the flows that we're playing. But you're digging into that data, you're using other variables, things like in-app messaging, walkthroughs and walk talks and things like that, to be able to get that data out. So again, you're still able to show value, because at the end of the day, and I'm glad that everyone on the stage today has talked about value rather than revenue. We're looking at value and how we can demonstrate that through other areas of the platform that are separate to the more traditional route, shall we say.
So I struggled with this question a little bit, because originally when it was posed, it was how challenging is it if you have a product-led organization versus a customer-led organization? And if your ideal customer profile, your ICP, who you would like to sell to, if you're both aware of that and you're focusing on the same things, then actually customer-led growth and product-led growth are the same thing. If you have a good product organization, because they should be talking to customers that match your ideal customer profile. That's who you're selling to. So you're going to pick things that drive value for all the people you're going for. Yay! So I struggled with it, because I've been lucky enough in the last 5 years to be at an organization where those two things are relatively strongly connected. And I think the challenge comes if you have a sales-led organization that is focusing on a different customer profile than who your product and customer teams are developing for. That's where you have that butting of heads, and you bring in customers that from a customer success standpoint, you're going, these are a terrible fit, they're going to churn. And that's when I would actually, I would have a conversation with the rest of your leadership to say, like, who is our actual ideal customer? Is it who we are servicing today? If not, let's have that conversation and develop towards it, in which case you, again, don't have a divide between product and customer and what they're focusing on.
I think, just to interject as well, I think one of the important things when moving to, or having customers that are moving to that product-led growth, is the point we raised earlier on, is being able to realign on the goals and targets and objectives. Because if a company is making a shift from a customer or sales-led growth through to product-led growth, their goals and objectives are going to have changed. So we as CSMs, or as a CSM org, need to be aware of those and realign and confirm those with the customer. So when we get closer to the renewal, our initial goals and objectives aren't relevant anymore. And the success plans will be updated so that everybody is aligned again to move through to that happy ending.
Amazing, thank you. And I think looking at it as well is like, how would you actually then look to measure the impact within the business and how that's kind of coming across, for delivering? How do you actually, how do you do it?
That's the tricky point.
Yeah, because renewal in and of itself is a lagging indicator. So you can go by renewal, but to a certain extent, it's going to be, most contracts are a year, so 12 months later. Not super helpful to the conversation that you're going to have with your teams today. Then I come back to, again, you likely have customers in some sort of segmentation. So your most valuable customers, the ones that you definitely want to keep around, looking at, okay, why did we develop this? I always go back to, at the end of the day, it's because people want to make more money. It's business, not volunteering. And so how is this helping them in the short term drive more revenue? Can we confirm that? Would the client confirm that? If yes, great, we're all on the same page. Now, for different organizations, you can then look at subsequent metrics like product usage. If that makes sense for your business, not all businesses have that as a way to effectively measure if your customers are truly getting value. I use my current company as an example. Because we are basically a customer data warehouse, they're in there every day. So there's actually no statistical difference between somebody who's going to stay using the product and somebody who's going to churn. It's literally the same usage. So it's not a metric for us, but for others, it very much is.
I think I sound like a stuck record, but it's that alignment with the customer as well.
Yep.
You know, at the end of the day, we can have internal measures that we are using to be able to identify risk or success. But at the end of the day, it's what does success look like for the customer? And again, it brings it back to that value piece. As long as you are demonstrating value to the customer, then that is that is success at the end of the day. You can use adoption and you can use upsell and you can use expansion as indicators internally, engagement rates and all of the other great things we see on health scores. But it's that clear understanding of what does success look like for you, because if your success is X and I'm looking to drive Y, then you're playing in the wrong playground.
Yeah. And it has to be the people that are signing the contract.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And looking at that, then, if there was the great talk earlier, churn was mentioned, and that's the biggest kind of like metric that you're looking at with the CS team, and that's the one thing that if I ever have to report back, Richard's listening, churn, it's something that, wow, what's happening in the percentage, and there's always things that there's impacts that, and there's always going to be some churn that is expected. There's always going to be somewhere, especially where it's not then SaaS, we're delivering a service, and the clients have got to the point where, they're happy, they've got their internal team, but how can you manage that from the perspective of you've got a SaaS, you've got this product where it's very unlikely the clients to churn, but when they do, like, how do you bring that background? Like, you've mentioned, obviously, yes, you do your QBRs and you do the success plans, but you've got the watermelons, but how do you do it? How do you look at it internally from, actually, how can we stop this or prepare for it?
Healthy paranoia.
Yeah.
At all times. So we internally, we listen to the customers, but again, it's a healthy paranoia of like, you're going to tell us only part of the story. And so we actually have enough data, because we've been around for 10 years, to be able to look at the things that have driven our customers, specifically those in our ideal customer profile, because it has shifted over the last 10 years, as to what led up to an actual churn and where the point of no return was. And we have that delineated into like the things that are specific to our business. So, relationship with stakeholders, data flow, because we plug into a variety of different areas of the tech stack, et cetera, et cetera. And so every week we're actually meeting with our teams. Well, the individual teams will meet, and then they'll funnel it up based on the leadership. Looking at, are any of those areas impacted? And if they are, then looping together all the associated teams to correct it. So some of the things historically, we actually, at the end of last year, realized during the, COVID and then the economic downturn, we've had a complete shift in our buyer profile. It used to just be the VP of marketing for an e-commerce organization or a bricks and mortar with an e-commerce retail store. And it's now involving the CTO, who has a completely different view on how things should be done. and is much more interested in minimizing the challenges from a data plugging in standpoint. And so we've actually re-architected our entire professional services organization. We're partway through the process to nip this in the bud, because we've realized that new customers coming in, it doesn't matter if they say they want to put something on hold. We need to then like go and talk to the CEO to get our stuff, put back on the top of the priority path in order for us to stop a churn from happening 3 years later. And we're actually putting all of our customers in our top segment back through a full tech review, because we appreciate that the businesses have changed and we know that this is going to minimize churn later on. So long way of saying, identify the areas that will impact your customer's ability to make money. And then even if they don't see a problem with it, you make it a problem and get it fixed, because at the end of the day, it's you who's going to be at the bad end of things if they don't.
Yeah, I think kind of talking as the anti CSM. I hate to say it, but sometimes churn's okay. Sometimes the customer
If they go
isn't.
insolvent.
Yeah. So sometimes the customer fit is no longer relevant, and the product usage is no longer going to match their needs. So there are scenarios when you're not going to be the right fit for everyone. But I think if you're using the methodology, again, part of it's going back to Kay's talk, where you're looking at the timeline and how you're putting those data checkpoints in, how you're communicating internally. Now that we're moving into the kind of, well, not moving into, but the acceleration of the RevOps model, where you are unifying departments together to be able to work as a cohesive unit, you can do as much as you can to mitigate that risk at a level that we've never seen before. And then you can bring partners into the mix, but I'll talk about partners later on.
Perfect. And I'm aware that we are nearly at time. I think people are very hungry, but I think if we just kind of round it back to the start of looking at, we've now looked at all these kind of key topics, but actually how can you manage it in the perspective of it, the reactive versus the proactive side? Because you're always going to have that point where you can be as proactive as you can, but there's some times where if you're in just a core support environment, that's mainly going to be you've got to be reactive to that, because you don't know what's incoming, so you can't always plan for that. But it's obviously the clients who then got the proactiveness around. So how do you kind of structure that and work on that within the businesses?
Well, I guess some of the question comes down to, as a business yourself, do you, like the numbers that you're giving to the board, is the retention, the net retention, the churn metrics that you have, are they aligned to what the business needs? If they are, maybe you don't want to change anything, right? Like, why put more money into something if you are happy with the outcome? Or you may be wanting to expand into another market, or you may want to go for the next round of investment, and actually you do need to have an improvement in some of those metrics, and then that could indicate where you may want to make changes in order to positively impact those metrics. Vice versa, you might be going through some sort of challenge where you actually have the right metrics, but your board is saying, you have to make this more efficient, which just means make it cost less. And then fancy words, and then you need to then look at, okay, well, how do we provide our customers with the same value but do it in a different way? And so from a reactive standpoint, that could be an entire initiative on self-driven support. And so that was something that we did a couple of years ago, where it was, well, people are calling in for information because it isn't easily accessible to them. It isn't put in front of them when they need it. And so that's when we looked at, like, not drift, because it was on the more of the customer side, but like that experience of, I'm actually in the software. This is typically when they would run into that problem. Or in a retail basis, guess what? Peak period usually comes around every October, November. So like, let's surface all the questions that they would ask around that time versus waiting for them to come to us. So you can look at things of that nature. Now I am customer focused, but I spend a lot of time not talking about customers. It's all in service of customers, but at the end of the day, you can only service them if you are answering to the people that give you the money. And to do that, you have to do that in a sort of financially driven way, but empathetic. And that's why I like being in CS.
Yeah, I think that every customer out there would love if we as software providers would cater to their every whim. But realistically, it's not going to happen. You know, the decisions that you need to make have to be right for, yes, the customer, yes, the evolving market, but at the end of the day, it has to be right for you for a business. So completely agree. You know, you have to be able to look at those metrics and say, okay, how are these business-led metrics? How are they performing? Are they the right metrics to have? And then you can structure your own reactiveness within that. And again, when you are looking at that reactive motion, that's when you're looking at, you know, bringing in things like digital CS or leveraging AI, leveraging different models, and leveraging the teams internally across the board, so that, you know, identifying potential risk early, elevating that, communicating that through the business to be able to get all bought in parties and stakeholders to come to the table as a unified unit rather than a siloed as it has been in the past.
Yeah, amazing. And I think that kind of ties into, I think, something that you quite like as well, is like looking at actually the rise of the co-service models. And I feel like we should have probably started on that, and you could have another hour to talk about that side of it. But in like a quick synopsis of that side of it, you know, how do you work together to unlock that value of it?
I'll start so
Please
I can
go
keep it as short as I can
1
for
minute.
you. Anyone that knows me or has worked with me knows that I am massively relationship driven. And building those relationships, as I've chirped on about probably 20 times during this, internally to align is key, because if everyone is aligned internally, you have the relationships and you have the people that are willing to lean in. Now, as we're going into this new model and we're starting to, it's not a new model, but reinventing the model of third parties, you know, looking at partners, all you're doing is extending your skill set without paying them a salary. You know, they get paid on commissions or whatever else. So to have the ability to turn around and say, yeah, we're a SaaS model that does, you know, sales engagement platforms and personalized experiences on the website. However, we have this army of affiliated partners who are specialists in digital transformation, omni-channel presence, ABM marketing, whatever it is. Once you get those people aligned and working with you, then it just means that you've got more to offer to your customer to be able to resolve any issues that they have and keep them happy and successful.
I think that was excellent. I don't have anything to add.
Thank you very much. So, Jennifer and Andy, thank you ever so much for obviously taking the time out today. We can open up if anyone has got any questions, and then I will follow up on the boring lunch conversation and what everyone needs to do. Any questions for Andy and Jennifer? I can't see if there's any hands. Ravi, are you around? No? No questions? Okay, amazing. That does mean everyone... Oh, we've got a question. Ravi. Run.
Hi. Right at the start, you were talking about getting the decision maker back in the conversation and start and tie that to the strategy of what you're trying to do with the account. And you talked about sending little bite-sized clips to say, you know, here's the TLDR that we talked about. And yeah, I was wondering, have you had any pushback from your key contact that you're talking to day to day? Who sort of says, I'm the person who goes and tells my boss about that. And how do you make sure you don't damage that relationship while still building your own relationship with the key decision maker?
It's a great question. Personally, I have had it on a few occasions, but it's one of those things that I tend to get ahead of early in the conversation, early in the relationship. That yes, you are my main POC, you're my point of contact, but you make it perfectly clear that, you know, we want to build a relationship between us as companies, and that goes from us as people at the coalface who are doing the work, through to leadership, through to executive and senior leadership. So making them aware that those conversations are being had, just it eases the flow. I would never send a message through unless I've got a particular complaint. I'm getting ghosted, or no one's turning up, or there's something that needs to be flagged as a problem. Making them aware that you're going to be sending those key messages, and also in those key messages, using that as an opportunity of saying, hey, person X, Dave, Sarah, whoever, your team's doing amazingly. I just wanted to make you aware of some of the great results that your team is generating by using this product and your investment. So you get around it by them not thinking he's going over my head because he thinks I'm a minion, to actually going, I'm bigging you up, I'm singing your praises, and communicate that with them. At the end of the day, everything starts with a conversation. So just keep the conversations going. Be honest and transparent. Unless there is a complaint, be honest and transparent, and then everybody wins.
It's also okay just to accept the fact that some people are just going to be grumpy about it and do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because the person who's grumpy doesn't sign the contract. I agree with all of the things that you're saying, but like you're not going to get 100% of the people being okay with it. That's fine. I'm still going to do it.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I use a little adage that you're not looking to make customers happy. You're looking to make customers successful. You can make your contacts happy, but as we've all seen, contacts come and go. But success is the measure of renewal, expansion, and everything else. So I'm not saying don't make them happy and piss them off, but aim for success at an account level, and the happiness of the friendships, and to use some of Joe's terms, can follow through on that relationship.
Amazing.
Sweet.
Yeah, I will let you guys just handle that one. You've done that. Any other questions at all? No? We are all good. Well, thank you ever so much.
Thank you very much.
And to Andy and Jennifer.